Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the ZER Skill Masterclass. My name is Jennifer Oblo Ureye, and I would be your host for today. Okay, so today, what we plan to do is to introduce you to the skill framework, just in case you haven't come across it before. And we particularly would most likely have a live question and answer session with Anu Singh. And then what after all of this conversation, what should you be doing next? So why are we doing this masterclass? In ZER, we believe that learning is power, and ZER was created to be purpose driven. What that means is that we are here to empower African businesses and leaders, and it's not just about what happens in the office or what happens around the office, but it's about how we lead, how we run our businesses. We're trying to share knowledge, tools, practical frameworks that will help to upskill any African entrepreneur in the African land scale. So we're just trying to make sure that the African leaders who have African businesses are building resilient and scalable businesses. So, why am I the person giving this session today? First, I've worked in Africa for almost, for over a decade now. I've worked across strategy, operations, as well as different transformation teams. I've worked closely with MDs and CEOs on strategy, design, and execution. I've also operated in the chief of staff type of role, led cross-functional team across HR, operations, and strategy as well. I've had the opportunity to work in different countries as well as for a Fortune 500 company. And of course, I'm an Afro optimist, which that means I just believe in Africa and what we have to offer. So I'm going to introduce the ZER skill framework now, which is just a roadmap for business transformation. We believe that African businesses who adopt this framework will be able to turn their business visions into reality. Okay, right. So just like the name implies, skill framework is actually like an acronym. So the S in skill means strategize your vision. The C in skill means championing. Can we go next? Thank you. Champion excellence. The A means we accelerating exceptional leadership. L there stands for leverage, governance for sustainable growth, and E means to expand your impact via growth capital. But for today, we're going to be focusing on accelerating exceptional leadership. What that means practically, we're going to see how leaders in Africa can um, accelerate exceptional leadership. Okay. So I can see that we have our guest of honor on the call now, and I'm going to briefly introduce her. So I'm very pleased to introduce Anu Singh, who has joined us today for our live Q&A session. Anu is a strategy and investment banking professional with deep experience across sectors like telecommunications, energy, mining, and infrastructure. She has held senior roles in global institutions, including Merrill Lynch, Rothschild, and even the MTN Group. And today, she serves on several boards, including Nimble Group and the National Transmission Company of South Africa. She has also served as a non-executive director at the Development Bank of South Africa, where she chaired the board credit and investment committees. So clearly, Anu brings a wealth of experience in strategy, investment governance, but also exceptional leadership. And I, for one, I'm really looking forward to hearing all her insights today. So, Anu, thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on the Zero Skill Masterclass.
Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon, Jennifer, and for
It's really
the
good to
warm
see
and
you.
lovely introduction.
Oh, you're very welcome. And so we're just going to jump right into it because we have quite a few questions
Hmm.
today. To we would like to pick
Sure.
your brain and just have practical insights from you. So just like I've introduced, you've sat on boards
Hmm.
of companies from MTN to Development Bank of South Africa. But I wanted you to just take a step back a little bit. Let's think about when you first had your first leadership role. What is
Hmm.
the one thing you wish someone had told you about leading before you were even ready?
I think um, a, having a level of self-awareness, so knowing your own strengths and your weaknesses and the impact one has on others as a leader, and I think that leads from number one, pick your battles.
Hmm.
Right. And by only knowing your own strengths and weaknesses can you pick your battles and know where to put your efforts.
Yeah. I totally agree with that, especially with the part about self awareness. We recently concluded a kind of leadership session for an organization we work closely with, and I think that was one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that kind of stood out. If you're not aware of yourself and how you lead and what you are doing, it will be difficult for you to lead other people. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree that self awareness and picking battles is very
Mm-hmm.
important, and it's good for leaders to know that very early on in their leadership journey.
Mm.
So at what moment did you realize that you had to think and operate like an owner and not just an employee? Because that's what moves people from being like an employee to a leader, right? So would
Mm-hmm.
you say you had like one moment where you realized that, hey, I need to start thinking like an owner? And what moment was that?
I, I don't think, as you said, there is a single defining moment. There is possibly a strong understanding of what, gives you a buzz or rather makes you tick. And I have a very strong ethical and moral compass, which always leads me to think about, doing the right thing, even when it's hard. And I think for me as an employee, this translated into doing the best you possibly can for the organization. While you have immediate, KPIs, as everybody likes to call them, um, yeah, that's the short term. But what's the big picture? The big picture is obviously you want to grow and diversify a company. So, what is the company's North Star? And, it could entail growing the business, creating more capacity, being innovative, being opportunistic, leveraging existing assets, whatever the case may be. But what is the North Star? What's going to keep the key shareholders and stakeholders happy? Like
Wow, thank you.
that's what drives me.
I agree with you, which I'm very sure I will mostly agree with you a lot of things today. But it's something that you said that stood out, which is like strong ethical compass. And why that kind of stood out to me is because having a business in Africa, we have this very strange narrative that Africans might not be like very ethical or very. So it's good
Mm,
that we have people in African businesses who are actively changing that narrative. So the strong moral compass or ethical compass would definitely assist a leader to ensure that they are operating like an owner and doing the right things at the right time for the organization. So that works. So I'm just going to move on to the next question. So again, in ZER Consulting, we work with a lot of founders, we work with a lot of people who have started organizations,
mm,
people who are running organizations. And one thing we notice that oftentimes we find founders drowning in day to day operations. It's kind of like a norm. So my question is, how did you train yourself to kind of don't fall not fall into that pit hole to ensure that you're thinking
mm.
strategically even under pressure?
Yes, look, I don't admire, or rather, I don't desire the roles or envy certain CEOs today, given the chaos in which we are living, particularly at this point in time. I think, when things get a bit too much, the noise is too loud. I prefer to step away from the noise and introspect and reflect. You know, look at the big picture. Where is it we are going? And, we're currently bogged down in day-to-day execution of operational activities. But what is the big picture? And, is what we're doing now taking us there? Because, as the age-old adage goes, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So it's always, step back, reflect, are our actions aligning with the right roadmap to take us to the end game that we
Yeah,
visualize?
yeah. But I also assume that that might take a lot of time for people that are not used to doing that. So can you tell us how we can quickly assess whether an opportunity is worth our time or energy or even capital?
Well, I guess, to the very first thing is, does it align with our strategy? You've got to have a stated strategy and ambition. And of course, what are the criteria that you look at for a transaction? It could be, that I want to expand, say, into West Africa, and which are the markets and why. What is the size of the deal? Because, as one has discovered in many years as a banker, a $5 million deal could possibly absorb a lot more resources or equivalent of a $500 million deal. So is it really worth the effort, right? And look at things like, are you diversifying earnings? Is there going to be a substantial return on investments? Is it going to be accretive or dilutive? Does it move the needle for the organization? And yes, it may move the needle or not. But has the organization decided on a Pac-Man strategy? To gobbling up little smaller players as it goes to ultimately become a larger player. And of course, if all else fails, do a high-level combination analysis. What do the numbers look like? But I think also, sometimes you get people that get a bit attached to a deal, and one can easily get pushed into chasing something for the sake of chasing a deal. And I think,
Okay,
without
correct.
having criteria and a strategy that one can clearly go tick, 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 or cross, cross, it becomes very difficult to engage in that conversation.
Great. So again, to just step away from the noise and analyze and ensure that what you are doing is
Yeah.
actually in line with what the organization needs to do at that point in time. Okay. And
Yes.
with your experience in all of these different rooms you've been in as a board member, as a CEO, as as somebody who has this wealth of experience, what strategic mistake have you seen founders make repeatedly, even when they are very smart? What strategic mistake have you seen that you would want this room to try to avoid?
Um, Jennifer, first, I haven't been CEO, I've been CIO. I
CIO.
think, I think, when it comes to growing a company, one needs to know when is the right time to corporatize. And if you're a founder, when do you let go of the reins to allow the corporate, if I could call them beast, in there to structure and scale up your organization for you? And I think it's incredibly courageous for founders to do that. It is, it's very difficult. So I admire people who make that decision, knowing full well it simply cannot be an easy decision. I myself have experienced difficulty in letting go of, concepts that have gone on to become companies, and having developed the concept, etc. I did struggle myself to let go, and let the company go into its next growth phase.
Very important there. So thank you for sharing that insight with us. And I think, yeah, as a CIO, as a female leader,
Mm-hmm.
I also find that sometimes founders feel like they're always outside of those powerful boardrooms, especially in Africa. Um, but do you have any insights to kind of share? Like, what is the real entry point into those powerful boardrooms in Africa? What is the entry point? How can we get other leaders to get into this leading mindset, this leading framework?
Mhm. So I think it comes from your reputation. To begin with, I guess you have to build a reputation of trust and capability with anybody that one works with. And be able to offer very strong technical capability. But I think fundamentally, if you want to get into the boardroom, having a very strong code of ethics is critical. Right? It's got to be your guiding light as you navigate very tough governance conversations. So I would say, work on developing your and honing your skills and making sure that you are trustworthy, reliant, and I think leveraging your network. As we know, everything is about networks,
Very true.
especially in
Um,
Africa.
especially in Africa, I was gonna say, especially in the
Yes.
climate that we live in, it's about your network. You definitely have to leverage those. But then we have those small leaders
Mm-hmm.
who. So again, I know you talk about trust and capability building, but can you give us like how did you really do that? Like make it a little bit more practical. How did you build trust with institutions like the IFC and DBSA? How did you build trust with them?
I think three words come to mind: credibility, honesty, and authenticity. And I think these institutions in particular are development funding institutions. And I'm being a little bit general here when I consider the IFC, because that's more the corporate animal in a sense, the World Bank. Um, and I think these institutions also have some of the smartest minds in the country, and in the case of the IFC, in the world. Many experts who have come together for the greater good. And they, like other institutions, need to know that you're credible. What is the governance at your institution like? Can you deliver? Can you walk the talk? And do you share the same or similar set of values?
Yeah, I like that. So you have to be able to prove that you are credible, you share their values, and you are honest about what you do, and of course you have the
Mm-hmm.
capability to do it. And
Yes.
then because I know these are actually things that you know I'm not sure these are things that small leaders focus on when they're trying to partner with powerful
Mm-hmm.
institutions. What would you say are the mistakes that small leaders make when they're trying to partner with these kind of powerful and large institutions? What are the things they're focusing on that they shouldn't really spend their energy focusing on?
I think a lot of the times people are often chasing a check, right? And they lose sight of the purpose that these stakeholders have. These are interested parties. And yes, there are a lot of people out there who need check. But what makes you different? What makes your organization one that I should give this check to? And how are you going to develop? How are you going to lead? How are you going to grow? Is your contribution additive? And does your value set? Do you actually live your values?
I mean, we do understand that organizations are here to be profitable, to make money for their founders and people who
Mm,
have invested in them. But of course, we need that extra oomph. If I hear you correctly, what is the extra thing that you're bringing to the table? What is that other value that you can create for the large
mm,
institution? So it's not always about chasing the checks, right?
yes, no,
So that's a
absolutely.
really good one. That's a good one. Okay. So BEE and transformation have shaped a lot of your the work that you're doing. How do founders use their identity and context as strategic assets rather than a compliance checkbox? Like, how can they use this type of identity to open doors for them, basically?
You know, I sound a little bit like a scratch record, so I'm going to apologize in advance before I actually respond. With anything, you need to have a good, solid reputation. You need to actually be able to contribute and add value. So I think, it goes to doing any deal, like the M&A deals we discussed earlier, where your contribution should be additive, value accretive. And I think that one needs to actually make sure that you are going to add value. Stay in the game. Give it your all. Don't step away, and make sure you've got a seat at the table to control the input, the narrative of your organization. Because I don't expect that things automatically get delivered. I think you need to shape the delivery and the teams towards continuing to deliver.
Yeah, and that's the work. You have to
Mm.
shape your organization, your team, your people. That's what leaders have to do. You have to shape it to deliver what you want it to
Yes.
deliver, as opposed to just going with the flow and waiting for things to happen by itself.
Mhm.
That is the work there as a leader. Okay, so I want to circle back a little bit to leadership under pressure. I know we talked about it lightly at the beginning of our
Mhm.
conversation, but again, when I look through your whole portfolio, you've led major disruptions at places like MTN. You've also worked, with distressed assets at Nimble Group, major infrastructure transitions, which I believe that would be a lot of pressure. So, what does leadership actually look like when things are not going the way you want it to go? When things are going wrong, what does leadership actually look like?
So I think fundamentally, you can see a leader under stress. The decisions that they make are questionable, not well thought through. But as they say, it will reveal your metal. So either you are a diamond underneath after all that beating up, or you will crumble. And a leader should really be like a river, you know, with rocks with a different gradient that continues to flow. Yes, there's a little speed bump, but I'm going to make my way around those rocks and keep going. And I think, when leadership is under pressure or weak, what you see is declining employee morale, a lack of trust generally in the organization. And I think this is how toxic culture form as well. You find lack of trust between the leader and his or her exco, and the exco could see the leader as fair game. Decreased levels of accountability, productivity, um, and I think these then become very difficult to unwind, particularly when you get to a toxic culture where everybody wants to be responsible, but nobody wants to be accountable.
Hmm, interesting. Everybody wants to be responsible, nobody wants to be accountable. I absolutely like that saying. And you're right as well. The way the leader makes the decisions will definitely start forming the kind of culture that the
Mm.
organization has.
Yeah.
So basically, to before warned is to before armed. And I hope that people listening to us, wherever they might be, are beginning to see the possible pitfalls. So yes, when a leader is going through issues and things are not going right,
Mm.
I think that's when leaders need to be even more careful in how they make decisions and how they run the organization, because that will also then translate to what the culture will be like after that, what the organization would be like. So I actually really like that what you said, about responsibility and accountability. But then when all of this is happening, how do you manage your own confidence and your own mental clarity, especially when the outcomes are uncertain? How do you make sure that you are still mentally okay and your confidence is not too shaken by what's happening around you?
As a leader, I think it's important to step out again every once in a while from your day-to-day role, to take time out for oneself, to take time for self-reflection on a daily basis. To reflect on how the day's gone, what went well, what didn't go so well. Do a quick mental health check, because sadly, the higher up you go, the more of an impact you have on your immediate surroundings, and that includes family. So I think it's important to do that mental health check and make it, make sure that even your family are holding up under this.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Especially now that we are seeing more women taking up leadership roles. I mean, I wouldn't say more per se, but at
Mm.
least we know of more women taking up leadership roles.
Yes,
Um, and unfortunately, taking up those roles don't mean that the roles at home is being done by somebody else. Most times than not, what happens is it's just an extra role they need to take on. So I
yes,
like the
exactly.
advice of it's just an
Yeah,
extra role. So I like the advice of stepping back,
yes.
checking, and I think what I want to point out here is it's important to be very intentional about it, because we just go next day to the next day to the next day to the next day, and before you know it, a month has gone by, a quarter has gone by, a year has gone by, and we haven't checked in with ourselves. How are we doing mentally? What can we do better to make sure that
Mhm.
what's happening around us is not getting into us per se? So thank you for that advice. But I want to give like advice for the general room. So let's assume we have founders right here who are about
Mhm.
maybe 3 to 5 years of experience and they want to play
Mhm.
at the next level in the next 2 years. What are 2 to 3 moves that they must absolutely take starting from now if they need to like move up in the next couple of years?
Okay. So I'll give you a response, perhaps thinking about it from an individual perspective. I think first I'd look at my toolkit. What's in my toolkit? Is it sufficient? Is it adequate for me to move to the next level? And by that I mean, do you need to brush up your skills on,
Skill.
something new? Obviously, one cannot now survive in the world without at least a, pedestrian knowledge of AI.
AI.
So,
Yeah.
do you hone that? Is your business going to need that some more? Um, and actually do that. And I think the next thing I would suggest strongly is find a mentor or a coach, depending on the level, etc. But I think, if you are in a corporate, having both, because the coach is outside of your day-to-day activities, is helpful, whereas your mentor will typically be in the organization. Is there somebody that's going to be able to back you, who herself has been successful? Right? And here, I have to say that, it's very important as women to back each other. So let's back each other. Let's build the sisterhood. Let's take each other forward. If you
Thank you
lift,
for
you're responsible to lift somebody else up behind you.
yeah, I agree. Totally agree on that. I'm tempted to talk about International Women's Month, but I'm just not going to talk
Yes.
about that.
Yeah,
But
we could
yes,
go on
I
for hours.
exactly. But I definitely agree with the toolkit part. Very important. The skills that we got when we were in university, the skills that got us to our jobs. It might not be what's going to keep us there. So it's important to continue recycling, continue ensuring that you're upskilling, and making sure that you're not just taking any course. Make sure that you're taking the
Mhm.
courses that will actually help you to grow. And that this whole thing about mentor or coach, my experience is mostly within Africa, especially in
Mhm.
Nigeria. And even though I studied in the UK, and I see the difference between how important they take mentorship and coaching in the
Yeah.
UK versus in Africa. So I think we now have to now start advocating and letting people know that it's just as important to have some form of mentorship, some kind of regular coaching, and it's
Mm.
something that we also try to do in there as well. Let people know that it's important to help you. You definitely need that help. So the same way women are backing women, whether you're a man in this room today, please find a mentor. I know some men that really should find mentors that will help you to just move to the next level. Is very, very important. So
Yes.
again, I like your background because it's kind of similar to mine. So your background is very varied. I know you've done engineering. You have an engineering thinking with investment banking and strategy. How important is it, especially in our climate today, for founders to develop fluency outside of their core skill? How important would you say that is, and how fast can they do it, or should they do it?
To begin with, I think one needs to step back and decide, are you going to be a technical expert? So are you going to follow an expert career trajectory, or are you going to follow one of leadership and management? I'm not saying that an expert cannot be a leader. And I think that then, informs uh, your next phase and your next development phase. What is it that I need to do to step up the ladder? And I think one needs to be agile. And I know it's a term that's very popular in modern management theory, but I say flexibility, you know, show show basically your brain strength to be able to think out the box, do something different, not get overwhelmed with new, right? If something is new, something is different, don't be overwhelmed. Take your time to assimilate and, ascertain how that could help you develop. What can I do here? What is it that's needed of me in this new environment? And I think, that's the thing that you've got to do. When I studied engineering, it was thought at the time only chartered accountants ran organizations. And I was told as such, having developed a new business idea for the consulting engineering firm that I was with. And I was told by someone locally, well, can you engineers basically, get back in your box, leave the business to the rest of us, kind of thing. Which then like perturbed me quite a bit, because is it becoming a level, whatever at the time, it was like level 22 engineer. Is that it? Because I'm already at level 20, and I was about 26, 27. And I'm like, and is that it? Is that the end of my life? Yeah. So, and also to understand what drives you. What are you passionate about? Because trust me,
Yeah.
if you're not passionate about what you're doing and growing, it's just going to be a very hard slog for you, and it's going to be exhausting and unpleasant, and that will have ramifications on other parts of your life as well. So I think it's find something that you are passionate about, figure out what you need to do, display a level of agility, and see, how you go. But I think, in a leadership position, one has to be a people person. When I say a people person, I don't mean that you have to agree with everything people say, but have to be willing to manage other people and work with them, collaborate, and so forth.
Yeah. Very important. Wow, thank you. I think it's important for leaders to really take
Mm.
that step back and see if they want to just keep being technical experts or be like a management type of person, which I totally agree. I know quite a few technical experts who have become leaders and they go on to actually learn managerial skills outside of their core
Mm-hmm.
sets, and they always come back to say that has made them like a better leader. So I agree with you that you don't have to stick to your core skill. You can broaden out, so it's
Mm.
definitely make you a better leader probably even understand the organization better because now you can see things like from a bird's eye perspective. So that really makes that resonates with me
Mhm.
as well. And so we're coming to the last couple of questions. So I want to go a little bit personal now. What has leadership cost you personally? What has leadership cost you? And would you say it was worth it? Because you've done a lot. I know
Mhm.
you've done a lot. So what has it cost you in your journey? What did you lose on the way? Did you lose anything, if at all? And was it worth it at the end of the day?
Well, as with, I guess, most people who have spent a number of years in the work environment, um, the challenge will always be getting the work-life balance right. And I think that probably earlier on, particularly in my 30s and early 40s, I did not do that. And I think that is definitely something, if I could go back, I would do better, have better work life balance and more time for family.
Yeah. Thank you. I asked that question because I just wanted to point out that leadership is not always a bed of roses. So people see the nice cars and the
Mm,
extra money and all of that, but there's always some kind of opportunity cost. And so we just wanted
yes.
to like highlight that everybody aspiring to be some kind of leader need to understand that something might have to give at some point, and it's better to just prepare for that mentally before you go into that leadership. So for the people in the room with us today, it's not always a bed of roses. You might most likely have to give up a few things for the goal that you're pursuing. So just have that in mind so that you're better prepared when you know, when those kind of decisions come your way. And so, um, in the 1994 version of you, which is fresh out of
Hmm.
engineering at UKZN, could if you could see today from 1994, what would surprise you the most, or surprise the 1994 version of you the most?
I think the fact that I've transitioned out of engineering and I did it very quickly, I think that would surprise me a lot. And I think that I, if I could think about, the fact that I was a relatively shy and retiring person back then. Um, but I think that, the fact that I transitioned out of engineering so quickly would be the most surprising thing for me.
I totally agree, but that's a testament to how you've pivoted and you were
Mm.
able to change direction when you saw the opportunity. So again, that's something that leaders also need to just get used to. When you're leading organization, when you're leading anything, there might be a time where you need to just go to
Hmm.
opposite direction from what you're used to. So again, thank you for highlighting that. Thank you so much, Anu, for coming on this for coming on. I wanted to say show, but this is not a show. For coming on our masterclass. I'm just going to go through the comments now to see if we have any
Yes.
questions for you. Okay. So I can see one from Manoj Dwivedi, and I hope I did not butcher your name. He says, "Hi, Anu, ma'am. Please share your experience in regards working with micromanagement companies." So I'm going to assume he's referring to when you have to work on the
Hmm.
managers that micromanage. How do you deal with that? Because even leaders have people they have to
Yes.
answer to,
Yeah.
right? So how do you
Exactly.
deal with micromanagement? Thank you for that good question, Manoj.
Yeah, it's a great question, Manoj. This is a difficult one because micromanagers can actually win one or drive one towards burnout, actually. And I think there are two ways of dealing with this, and it could be a combination or it could be, either way. One is to be, preempt their questions and you know, uh, actions. So engage with them on a proactive basis to give them regular feedback because it always helps. And I think, you know, if someone starts sending you emails with questions, just say like several times a day, etc., I think the other way is to don't respond right away. You know, I think leave it and you answer maybe at the end of the day, etc. And they could say, listen, why don't we just arrange a quick feedback session, you know, once a week or twice a week for half an hour over a cup of coffee? And I think it'll be a lot easier for me to give you feedback that way.
Yeah. Basically, managing the expectations. I always like to say,
Expectation,
don't start what you
yes,
cannot finish. So if you know you don't want to have to be sending emails all through your time there, don't start it.
100%.
We have a question from Adeolu. How do you yourself step back and check in?
So, and yeah, there's a number of ways that I do it. I mean, one, whether it's having a cup of coffee on my patio and listening to the birds, or two, you know, there's something, and I sound a little bit like airy fairy here, is that I literally take time out every day for 5 minutes to do something called earthing. So, you know, I'm out on the grass. One doesn't have that in corporate, admittedly, but you know, even in corporate, one can close your door and just have 5 to 10 minutes on your own to do nothing work related. Don't think about it. Don't go on the internet. Just sit down and think about how's the day been? You know, what's working, what's not working. You know, what stressed me out. You know, if you've got anxiety because you are stressed, you know, try to pinpoint in those minutes what is the source of this anxiety, and then you know, then go back. And there's nothing like a few
Yeah,
deep breaths to help one pace yourself, control your breathing, control your responses.
yeah. Thank you for those examples. So for everybody in the room, find what works for you. So what Anu is trying to say is that you just have to take out those few minutes every single day and just recenter. Find out what's stressing you
Yes,
out. Try to get to the bottom of it. Some people say they are switching off, but they're still reading work emails. And the
yes,
person that I am talking about is on this call. You come home and you say, "Oh, you know, I'm done for the day," but you're reading work emails, you're stressing about it.
mm,
So we need to be again intentional about it. So take out that time, because if you are not in your best self, how can you lead other people? So it's important that leaders
completely.
take out that time to check
Yeah,
in, step back, find what works for you. It might not be the grass, might not be the coffee, it might be
mm.
music, it might just be talking to your best friend
Yeah,
on the phone. So definitely find
completely.
what works for you, but be intentional about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. You have to be
Okay.
intentional. And look, in the good old days, as one would remember, in corporate, which is full of men, all the men went outside for a smoke break. And they were
I,
shooting the
I mean,
breeze, as we say, right? So they were chilling for like 10, 15
yeah,
minutes. So,
literally in
you
the
know,
middle of the work day, everybody just steps outside
yeah,
and gets the smoke.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
whatever,
And
you
that
know,
was
floats your
them
boat. Listen to
recentering
music.
themselves.
There's lots of meditation
Yeah.
music. Taking a walk away from your desk for 10 to 15 minutes, whatever works.
Yes, whatever works.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I mean, this was really, really good having you on the ZER Masterclass today. Thank you so much for making out the time. I can imagine that someone like you will be quite busy, but you made out time for us today, and we truly appreciate that. And we look forward to having you sometime again in the future. Thank you
It's
so
been a
much.
great pleasure. Thank you so much, Jennifer and ZDR Consulting, for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So, Thank you, everybody, for joining. We've spent almost an hour now, so let's talk about what comes next. So you've listened to all of these great insight from Anu and I, and now we need you to go away and practicalize that. And how can you do that? Well, we have a way to help you. On the screen, you can see what you call that, a barcode, or I don't know what, I can't remember what it's called. You can use your phone right now and you get to our skill scorecard on our website to access your current strengths and gaps. So you can take this is a really clever questionnaire that you can take and to give you operationalized answers to how you can also take all of these insights and put it to your organization. So don't forget, we talked about the skill plan when we started. You just need to go to the ZER Consulting Africa website, or right now, take a photo of the code on your screen. Go to the scorecard, take the questions. How can you, so that you can see where the gaps are in your organizations and what you need to do to ensure that you close that gap. And our MD CEO has also written a book. It was the number one bestseller on Amazon. You definitely need it if you are running a business in Africa or have any kind of um, concern or stake in a business in Africa. It's called Afro Optimism Unleashed. You can see it on the screen as well. Please go and buy the book, explore it if it's something that you need. And you can find us on LinkedIn, go to our website. Please stay in touch with us. So this is not the end of our journey together. We are here. Zero Consulting Africa is here to help businesses in Africa again become scalable and outlive founders basically. So keep in touch with us. We have our website, we have LinkedIn. Send emails if you want to. And yeah, this is how we come to the end of today's session. I am looking forward to doing this again sometime in the near future. Thank you, everybody that took our time to join, to retweet, to share our messages all over social media as well. It was great to be here. And my name again is Jennifer Obulo Ureye, and I look forward to being on the ZER Masterclass again. Thank you and see you soon.